Imagine a place so ancient, so mysterious, that it may very well be the very first city humans ever built. A place where thousands of years before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, even before writing itself, people gathered, farmed, built walls, raised towers, and left behind ruins that still baffle scientists today. This place is Jericho, a name you've probably heard before, but what you're about to discover will change the way you see history forever. Was Jericho truly the first city on Earth? Or is there something even older, hidden in the sands of time? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal is not what they taught you in school, and by the end you'll never look at civilization the same way again. And before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because this is the kind of hidden history that the world has tried to bury for thousands of years. When you think of the first cities, your mind probably jumps to Mesopotamia, the so-called cradle of civilization, with Sumer, Uruk, and Babylon. But Jericho, located in the West Bank near the Jordan River, is far older. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of human settlement there dating back nearly 11,000 years to around 9,000 BCE. To put that into perspective, that's 6,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, thousands of years before cuneiform writing, and nearly double the age of the first cities of Mesopotamia. What makes Jericho extraordinary is not just its age, but the sheer scale of what people were doing there at a time when most of humanity was still living as scattered hunters and gatherers. Imagine a community of people who decided not to wander anymore. They built permanent homes out of mud brick, round houses with plastered floors, clustered together like a hive. They learned to cultivate the land, growing wheat and barley, and they domesticated animals. This wasn't just survival. This was innovation, the spark of civilization itself. Jericho shows us the very moment when human beings made the leap from nomadic tribes to settled societies. But here's where it gets even more shocking. Archaeologists have uncovered a massive stone wall surrounding the ancient settlement. This wall, built around 8000 BCE, is considered the world's first known city wall. Think about that. Thousands of years before empires, before kings and palaces, people here were building fortifications. But why? Who were they defending against? If the rest of the world was still scattered tribes, some believe it was protection against floods from the Jordan River, others suggest it was for defense against rival groups, but a growing number of researchers suspect something deeper, that Jericho was more than a settlement. It was a hub of power, religion, and perhaps even conflict. And then there's the tower, rising nearly 30 feet high, built from stone. The Tower of Jericho is one of the oldest known monumental structures on Earth. To build such a tower required organization, leadership, and a sense of purpose. But here's the catch. No one knows exactly why it was built. Some suggest it was a defensive lookout. Others believe it was aligned with the setting sun on the longest day of the year, making it one of the world's first astronomical monuments. Think about what that means. Over 10,000 years ago, people in Jericho may have been tracking the movement of the heavens, connecting the earth with the cosmos. The story of Jericho doesn't stop there. Over the millennia, the city rose and fell, again and again, layer upon layer of ruins stacked on top of each other, creating a mound known as a tell. Archaeologists digging at Jericho have uncovered more than 20 different layers of occupation. Each one tells a story of resilience, destruction, and rebirth. Fires destroyed the city, earthquakes toppled its walls, and yet people returned, rebuilt, and continued to live there. Jericho is not just the first city, it is a symbol of humanity's determination to endure, to rise again no matter what. But with Jericho comes mystery. Among the most chilling discoveries were skulls buried beneath the floors of houses. Not just ordinary burials, but plastered skulls. Archaeologists found human skulls with faces reconstructed in plaster, painted to look lifelike, with shells for eyes. Were these early forms of ancestor worship? Were families keeping their dead close, believing their spirits watched over the living? Or were these the remains of leaders, preserved as sacred icons of power? No one knows for certain, but what's clear is that Jericho wasn't just a settlement, it was a spiritual center. A place where life, death, and memory were deeply intertwined. Fast forward thousands of years, and Jericho appears again in the Bible, the city of wars brought down by Joshua's trumpets. The biblical Jericho is famous as the first city conquered by the Israelites after crossing the Jordan. But when archaeologists went looking for the evidence of those mighty walls, they uncovered something far stranger. Yes, Jericho had walls, some of the oldest in the world, but the timeline doesn't quite match the biblical account. Some walls had collapsed centuries before the supposed time of Joshua. Others were rebuilt, only to fall again in earthquakes or invasions. Was the story of Jericho in the Bible a retelling of real history, or was it myth layered over the memory of an ancient city that had already stood for thousands of years? The deeper archaeologists dig, the more questions emerge. Was Jericho truly the first city? Or were there others, perhaps still buried, even older, waiting to be discovered? Some point to sites like Çatalhöyük in Turkey or Göbekli Tepe, which also date back to 9000 BCE, but Jericho stands out because it wasn't just a ritual site or a cluster of homes. It was a living, breathing community with defenses, agriculture, religion, and monumental architecture. In other words, it was civilization. Think about what this means for us today. Every modern city from New York to London to Tokyo can trace its roots back to places like Jericho. The decision our ancestors made to settle down, to build walls, to create monuments, to bury their dead with reverence. That was the birth of the world we live in now. Jericho isn't just the first city, it is the seed of everything that came after. But here's the haunting part. If Jericho was already this advanced over 10,000 years ago, what else have we lost to time? How many other ancient cities were swallowed by floods, earthquakes, or buried under the sands of history, leaving behind no trace? Jericho may be the first city we know, but it may not be the first city ever built. Humanity's story could go back even further, into a forgotten chapter of prehistory. And so, Jericho stands as both an answer and a question. It shows us how civilization began, and at the same time it whispers that there is still so much we don't know. Beneath its stones lies the mystery of our own origins, the moment when humanity stopped wandering and began building. The city that may have been the first, but certainly not the last. But so, was Jericho truly the first city on Earth, or is it just the first we've uncovered? That's a question only time and future discoveries can answer. But one thing is certain, the story of Jericho is not just about the past, it's about us. It's about who we are, where we came from, and what it truly means to be human. And if you've stayed with me this far, you already know, history isn't just in books, it's alive, buried in the earth, waiting to be uncovered. If you want more hidden truths like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it, because the story of Jericho, the world's first city, deserves to be remembered.